और इस वक्त आपको बराह रास्त चलेंगे इस्लामाबाद, जहां पर अक़वाम मुत्तहिदा के सेक्रेटरी जनरल एंटोनियो गुटेरेस इस वक्त तकरीब से खिताब कर रहे हैं।
Agenda and recognize them as national development goals. And in 2018, Pakistan launched a national SDG framework to prioritize and localize the global goals through the country. And as with the goals globally, poverty reduction is at the heart of Pakistan's effort to leave no one behind. A national poverty alleviation program, titled SRS or Compassion, has been launched to expand social protection and safety nets and to support human development. And the National Youth Development Program, titled Kamyab Jawan, is seeking to create 10 million jobs for young people in 5 years. And stunting and malnutrition are down, and the nation is seeing success in bringing down neonatal mortality, thanks in large part to the Lady Health Workers Program, which has been a significant increase in skilled birth attendance. And I'm also encouraged by the country's initiative this year to promote universal health coverage. These are just some of the many actions being taken by Pakistan and other nations to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Everywhere we can see progress, poverty and child deaths down, access to energy, education, and decent work rising. But whether we look at Pakistan or elsewhere, we can also say the pace of change is not yet fast enough. In Pakistan, you are grappling with major challenges relating to HIV and polio, environmental degradation, and providing education, skills, and jobs for all in one of the youngest countries in the world. And globally, the story is similar. We are off track globally, especially in the areas of hunger, inequality, biodiversity, and climate action. Gender inequality in businesses, in the homes, in schools, and in government, in the technology sector, is denying women and girls their rights and opportunities across the world. And vulnerable populations, such as migrants, young people, and persons with disabilities, remain at risk of being left behind. Our collective efforts are not approaching the scale we need to deliver the SDGs by 2030. In fact, by some estimates, we'll only get halfway to our goals at the current pace. For that reason, we have this year launched a decade of action to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. With only 10 years left before the 2030 deadline, there is an urgent need to step up action. And every nation, every community, and every person can and must make a contribution. The Decade of Action calls on governments, businesses, civil society, and individuals everywhere to combine to create unstoppable momentum for the goals. The recipe is clear. First, to mobilize everyone around a common effort. Second, to demand urgency and action and to hold leaders to account. And third, to supercharge ideas so that they become sustainable solutions. We need to identify what works and scale up solutions and investments so that we reach all the people on the planet. In all of these, the mobilization of finance to fill the gap of some $2.5 to $3 trillion a year is critical. In a period where official development assistance has been decreasing, together with private foreign investment in the developing world, it is absolutely essential that developed nations deliver on the commitment made in the Addis Ababa Action Agenda and the Paris Agreement. On the other hand, it's important to support developing member states in their capacity to mobilize domestic resources through improved governance and tax reforms. But the success of national efforts also requires the international community to be more effective in clamping down on illicit financial flows, money laundering, and tax evasion. At the same time, we need innovative financial tools to help in de-risking private investment and in the developing world, to channel more stronger resources to achieve the SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, I firmly believe we can be the generation that ends poverty and hunger and conquers injustice and inequality. But it is not going to be easy. We face multiple obstacles. Geopolitical tensions are higher, and they have been for years, and unpredictable changes in power relations in a chaotic world are placing a strain on the multilateral system that has largely kept the world safe for the past 75 years. Global mistrust, due to the growing inequality and unfair globalization, is growing, not only between nations, but between peoples and their leaders. We also have to address the challenges of the fourth industrial revolution and make sure we embrace the benefits while minimizing the risks posed to human rights and equity around the world. But finally, and central to the discussion today, there is the climate emergency. This is the threat that I believe is most grave and most urgent, yet it is something I am convinced we can tackle if only we can generate the political will and the unity we need to make a difference. Climate disruption is a clear and present danger worldwide, but let us for a minute look at it through the lens of Pakistan. Like other developing countries, Pakistan has contributed little to the problem, yet faces disproportionate vulnerability because of it. In the past decade, Pakistan has lost some 10,000 lives to climate-related disasters, including 1,200 who died due to a terrible heat wave in Karachi in 2015. The Indus Valley is vulnerable to flooding, and low-lying coastal communities face the prospect of being swamped by rising sea levels. And currently the country is enduring the risk of a locust emergency triggered by climate disruption. Global warming is leading to global swarming. But the biggest worry for Pakistan is water. This is true for all the people of Central, South and East Asia who rely on the water towers of the Himalaya. Pakistan's smallholder farmers, who represent more than 40% of the labor force, produce 90% of the nation's food supply and generate 75% of the country's export revenue. They depend on rainfall and on irrigation from rivers fed by receding mountain glaciers. In fact, 80% of Pakistan's water use is for agriculture, and it is under threat. Pakistan is one of the 15 most water-stressed countries in the world. As temperatures rise and glaciers melt, Pakistan's goals for reducing poverty and guaranteeing food security are put at risk. And Pakistan is not alone. The same story is mirrored across the globe. We see it in the droughts which threaten the Horn of Africa and the Sahel, and the wildfires that have caused so much suffering both in Australia and the United States. No country is immune. And that is why I'm constantly urging global leaders to act on climate change before it is too late. Sadly, after the success of the Paris conference in 2015, our momentum has stalled. COP25 in Madrid was a disappointment. Our planet is burning, but too many decision makers continue to fiddle. The only answer is decisive climate action by governments, businesses and investors, mayors and governors, and citizens everywhere. Gradual approaches are no longer enough. And the next climate conference, COP26 in Glasgow, governments must deliver the transformational change our world needs and that people demand with much stronger ambition. Ambition on mitigation, but also, as we see with the needs of Pakistan and many other developing countries, ambition on adaptation and ambition on finance. Every city, region, bank, pension fund and industry must completely reimagine how they operate. Our goal must be to keep temperature rise to 1.5 degrees. This is what the scientific community tells us is the only way to avert runaway climate change. And to do that, the world needs to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 45% from 2010 levels by 2030 and to reach net zero emissions by 2050. And the main obligation rests on the major emitters. And there was a map that shows them. Those countries that contribute most to this crisis must lead the way, not least by phasing out coal and ending perverse fossil fuel subsidies. But all countries can and must play a role. I commend Prime Minister Imran Khan for highlighting climate change at the United Nations General Debate last September, and I congratulate Pakistan on becoming co-chair of the Green Climate Fund. And I also welcome the initiatives such as the 10 billion Treat Tsunami campaign and the government's Clean and Green Pakistan movement. I have to say that I was extremely well impressed when I've heard that Pakistan had decided in Islamabad to abolish plastic bags, and that will be the same everywhere. Plastic pollution is today one of the central concerns that we have, especially for the protection of our oceans. And sometimes people are a little bit reluctant of it, but for those that are reluctant, I have a solution here, which is to use bags like these, which is a UN non-plastic bag to go to the supermarket. Such local initiatives are essential, and they should be reflected and supported across the planet where appropriate. But ultimately, the answer to the global climate crisis will come from global solidarity backed by global action. We are in a battle for our lives. Our sustainable future is at stake, but I firmly believe it is a battle that can be won. Technology is on our side. We have all the tools and knowledge we need to move from the grey economy to the green economy, as it was seen in the slide. We have the Paris Agreement on climate change, the Sustainable Development Goals, and we have the most engaged and mobilized generation of young people in history, a group that is simply not going to accept the current situation. The history of humanity is one of progress. I believe the trajectory is inexorable. So as we look ahead to 2030, let us look ahead with optimism and determination, knowing that we have overcome great challenges before, and we will surely do so again. Thank you very much, and best success for your program.